Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, and welcome to the Fony Bash. Okay, so here we are on part 4 of the Fony Bash, and the F-51 has been all painted up. Now, before I get into what's going on here, a quick caveat. I have misplaced the decal sheet for the Tamiya F-51. I have no idea where it went. I've been looking for it for a little while now and cannot find it. Which means I'm going to be delayed in the next stage of this because there are a few decals I need off of the sheet, or decals I need off of some sheet. The U.S. Air Force stencil that goes on top of the tail number is a key one. Then there are a couple little things like the fuel tank, filler areas, and stencils and shit like that. So nothing major, but it is going to slow this down a little bit. So with that fair warning, let's get into it. Now, first of all, I don't know if I've really made this clear in the process before, but I've been intending this as essentially a advanced mule, if you will. So I am building it as a full build, but it is also really about testing things out to tackle Tamiya's 1/32nd scale F-51. And so when there are fuck-ups and inaccuracies and things like that, I'm kind of skating by them. And if you want to see a real fuck-up, look at that Insignia. Basically, I got turned around when I was placing the actual outline component to spray the blue, and didn't realize it until I went to place the mask that would allow me to spray the white for the stars and bars. And at that point, I decided pretty much fuck it. Again, it's an advanced mule. This kind of thing does happen from time to time in real life, so it is plausible. The aircraft I'm doing does not really have good reference photos. I essentially have two. One of them only shows a certain area of the aircraft, and the other one shows it third in line, stuck behind some others. So, it's possible. I also got the Wanda thing here on the forward section, right behind the shark mouth, wrong. The picture shows the orange band on the bottom of the text, not on the top. Oops. Oh well. Lesson for next time. So, anyway, let's get into the painting and what has happened with this. So, my goal is to basically replicate a worn and battered overall aluminum lacquer. F-51s during Korea, if you look at reference photos and you look carefully at reference photos, basically show up in two different guises. There is just old P-51Ds from World War II that have had new markings slapped on them, and those are still the lacquered wings and the bare metal fuselage, and then you have ones that have been painted overall in aluminum lacquer, including the fuselage. And the way that you can really tell these apart is to essentially look at the paneling right here around the exhausts. On a bare metal Mustang, this is a steel panel as opposed to the aluminum around it, basically because it can take the heat of the exhaust coming off of it and not degrade. So on bare metal Mustangs, this band is darker, noticeably darker. And that's a great way to tell, even on highly oxidized finishes, which ones are bare metal and which ones were painted. What I'm doing, this is all of a piece with the rest of the fuselage. It's a little bit dirtier back here because of the exhaust, obviously, but it's not the steel that you see on the bare metal ones. So, spraying something overall aluminum lacquer is typically really fucking boring. It lacks kind of the pop and sparkle of bare metal, and it can just look like a shiny gray if you do it wrong, or if you take a picture with your phone and have it on HDR and it gets all confused. So, how to make it a bit more interesting? Well, I started out spraying a good old coat of Tamiya LP11 Silver, which is my favorite for aluminum lacquer paint. It just nails the look, in my opinion. But it's also very clean. And so I came in with a little bit of black sponge foamy shit and my trusty Incredible White Mask Liquid Frisket, and did the sponge masking thing, where you basically get the sponge wet with the mask, dab off most of it, and then you just kind of stab it around. So it did that and sprayed a few different mixes of LP11 silver with other things, namely stuff like, shit, I think I put it away. Oh no, here we go. So stuff like some light gray, stuff like some dark gunship gray, stuff like some sand gray, basically various warm tones in different shades that sort of represent a bit of wear. And basically, you know, put the sponge masking down, spray lightly, rub it off, put more down, spray the next thing lightly, and that gets us this sort of mottled, beat up finish that you can see on the wings right here. It's really tough to get this to really pop in photos. Basically, my D850 can pull it out, but my cell phone is largely helpless in helping me really capture that. So, hoping the image sensor on this camera can do it as well. If not, have a look at some of the photos. So that was the basic painting of the base aluminum lacquer. The rest of this is all masked. And typical masking process, I scan the decal sheet for the Tamiya kit into the computer, open up Illustrator, place the file, and for things like the Insignia, I've already got an Insignia file, so it was a matter of really just sizing it to the Tamiya kit to make sure everything lined up. USAF, I have the font again, type it out, size it, make sure that the width is right and all that kind of stuff. The FF959, the Wanda, the tail code, the shark mouth, they are all original creations based off of the few photos that I have of this actual aircraft. The shark mouth is a slightly different shape than the one in the Tamiya kit. The Tamiya kit one has much more of a pronounced curve at the bottom. It kind of, you know, shallows out, and I think it honestly has a more pronounced curve up top too, whereas the reference photo for Wanda shows much more of a straight angular thing going on. So basically used some elements of the Tamiya shark mouth to size out some of the teeth, but then I sort of went my own way there as well. Made a bunch of teeth and essentially just masked off the shark mouth area, sprayed it all white, dropped a bunch of teeth in places, sprayed it red, and the red is actually Gun's C327 character red, or Thunderbird's red. Essentially, it's U.S. Insignia red, for lack of a better descriptor, mixed with a little bit of primer red to kind of dull it out a little bit. The others were all pretty straightforward. The Insignia Mask, this is the first time I've actually done the post 47 with the red stripes in the bars, and essentially it's the exact same process as you would go through masking a regular World War II insignia, with the final step, instead of the final step being spraying the white and then pulling everything off. Once you spray the white, you have two little slices here that you mask in to protect the white, and then you spray the red. That's the only real difference. Now, the other stuff that you might notice, the Wanda here with the two-tone shade, that's basically masking off Wanda, spraying it. Oh, I sprayed it first pink as a base for the yellow. Then I sprayed the yellow. Then I put a little piece of tape across there and sprayed the orange. Nothing tough. The USAF and the fuselage codes, as you can see, are kind of chipped up on both sides here. That's looking at the actual aircraft and sort of the grunginess that was going on with it. And that was done with hairspray and some chipping. Essentially all it was. Up here, I went super light on certain portions of the USAF, trying to figure out how it chipped. My theory with this is that it was the crew moving around the gun bay doors. So the gun bay doors themselves are okay-ish, but the areas right on the perimeters are the things that are all scuffed and chipped away. And yeah, that is pretty much it. The anti-glare panel here is MRP's Night Camo Black, my favorite black. And I went ahead, before I finished up with all the masking and stuff on it, and used some Ammo Oil Brusher Silver, I think it was, to come in here and pop out some of the fasteners on the cowl, because they are popped out in the reference photo as well, and it just looks cooler and gives it more presence. Dab those in, get some naphtha and wipe them away, clean up around them. And then while that was all still masked, I sprayed it with MRP's semi-matte clear, which is a good way to make it not quite as shiny as it normally is. The spinner is a wholly different thing. And sorry, it's held on with some friskets shoved into a hole, basically. It is painted with Moto T009, which is a nice, awesome bare metal. I think it contrasts very nicely with what's going on the aluminum lacquer finish, and really stakes a claim to, hey, this is a different thing than what's going on up here. So what is next? Well, next is waiting for some decals, or trying to find some decals for that little USA or US Air Force thing on the back, and some of the stencils around about on the airframe, which I don't know how many there are, because if it was painted over, chances are good that you wouldn't get a lot of these things back. After that, it's time to move into weathering. I probably need to seal in the hairspray on some of these things first, so that'll be fun. But then, yeah, heavy weathering on this, especially on the wing rids here. There's a lot of like tans and whites that show up. So this thing is going to be a nice and dirty aircraft when all is said and done. But that's pretty much where it stands. So far, I'm definitely happy with it. I think it's a very good advanced mule, if nothing else. I think if I were wanting to build a F-51 right now, starting fresh, I would honestly probably wait until Edward drops their F-51, which they are sure to do. Just because the Tamiya kit is great, it builds great, but honestly, after 25 years, it's definitely starting to show its age a little bit compared to the newer stuff. The cowl detail is still world class. It still beats the shit out of the Edward kit. However, the fuselage detail is severely lacking, and that really shows when you put the two side by side. So, still totally possible to build this kit. Builds well, builds fast. Tamiya greatness. However, I think the Edward has it beat at this point. Still, though, this is a fun one. It's kind of fun building this, and not really sharing it around much. It's going to be fun to sort of drop it when it's all said and done. And yeah. So anyway, say goodbye to this guy for a little while, because we're going to have to wait for decals. And keep looking out for the next installment in the regular Fony Bash and in the Fony Bash as well. Later.